Varmt välkommen till Stockholm och Småbolagsdagarna. Vi är i full gång med företagspresentationer. Vill påminna om er som sitter där hemma att ni har goda möjligheter att ställa era frågor till företagen, antingen via YouTubes chattkanal, chattfunktion, eller så gör ni det via SMS. Nästa bolag på scen är Cereno Scientific och det är Sten Sörensen. Welcome, Sten.
Thank you.
Where are you sending from?
We're sending from the university town of Lund and Biostock studio.
Okay, and the sun is shining on you too.
Absolutely, but not in here.
Not in here, okay. But let's give us some sunshine then, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. So I'm very pleased to be here and to be able to present to you the exciting development that we have with Cereno Scientific. I am Sten Sörensen. I'm the CEO of the company since 2015. So Cereno Scientific develops novel drugs to transform the treatment of cardiovascular disease, common and rare diseases. And there is a significant market need due to the high mortality and high morbidity that's adversely affecting a lot of patients in their lives, and also shortness of life expectancy. We have a pipeline portfolio of a phase 2 drug that we're going to bring into phase 2 study this fall. And we also have 2 preclinical programs, and I'm going to go into more detail a little later on in the presentation. Cereno was founded in 2012, and we put it on the stock market 2016 on Spotlight. The sticker is CRNOB. Cereno's footprint has been expanding over the last years. So we have our head office in AstraZeneca at the BioVenture Hub. We have a satellite company in Boston in Kendall Square, and we have a lot of research collaborations going on in the United States. So cardiovascular disease is affecting a lot of people. And 22 million approximately are going to die by CVD in 2030. 80% of those deaths are due to some kind of heart attack or stroke, which is due to thrombosis. And Cereno Scientific's programs address thrombosis and other matters of disease progression in cardiovascular disease, and looks very promising so far. The cost of cardiovascular disease is tremendous, as you can see from this picture of EU and US. So back to our portfolio, we have 3 programs. The first program and the most advanced is CS1. It's an HDAC inhibitor, and we have done discovery, preclinical, and a phase 1 program so far. And this fall, we're going to go into a phase 2 program in the rare disease, pulmonary arterial hypertension, PAH. We have 2 preclinical programs, CS585. It's a prostacyclin analog, very exciting new program in our portfolio. And we have another preclinical program called CS014. That's also a HDAC inhibitor program. Now, 2 of our programs, CS1 and CS014, acts as epigenetic modulators. And epigenetic modulation is done impacting genetic expression, or the expression of proteins from DNA, without changing the structure of genetic material. One way to do this is through HDAC inhibition, and our programs are doing that. HDAC inhibition has been playing a critical role in new cancer therapies, but so far, to our knowledge, nobody has pursued HDAC inhibition for cardiovascular disease treatment. So we think we have a lot of potential to bring safer and more efficacious drugs to the market and meet the needs that are there. So going into the rare disease pulmonary arterial hypertension, for which we are developing our most advanced program, CS1. PAH is a rare disease affecting 5 to 15 out of 100,000 people. And patient experience shortness of breath, fatigue, chest pain, edema, fainting, and so on. And this leads to oxygen problems with oxygen supply and ultimately fatal right heart failure. So the only real cure here is lung transplantation, but very few patients get such. So there's a very bad prognosis for these patients and a very bad situation overall. Why do we feel that we have such a potential with CS1 and also our scientific advisory board and others that we work with? Well, we have seen that in the documentation for HDAC inhibition and VPA, which is our substance in CS1, that we have a four-fold efficacy that could be very positive in the therapy here. So we have seen antifibrotic effects, anti-inflammatory effects, pulmonary pressure reduction, and antithrombotic effects. All of these four aspects are very involved in pathophysiology of PAH and its progression. So CS1 is an advanced reformulation of VPA, and we have proven good safety and tolerability in our phase 1 study. We have less side effects, no problems with bleeding, which is often seen with anticoagulants and a big problem there. And this broad profile offers a lot of potential for PAH. Now, if we look at the market is around $7 billion now, and it's expected to grow to 10 billion. We expect to reach the market in 2027. We saw this potential and applied to the FDA for an orphan drug designation, and we got it approved in March last year. And this is a validation of the potential that CS1 and HDAC inhibition has in this severe disease. Why is it good to have an orphan drug designation? Well, it brings you rebates in your R&D programs, but also if you reach the market, you get 7 years exclusivity on the US market and 10 years in Europe. Now, looking at our development plan more closely here for CS1. So if we look at the preclinical and peer studies to the left of this slide, we have shown in live animals that we have antithrombotic capacity, preventing blood clots, which is one of the problems in PAH. We have also seen that we reduces the pressure in the lung, and we reduces right heart fibrosis, and also its remodeling. We have also seen that we have anti-inflammatory and anti-fibrotic pulmonary vascular effects. So that's all backing the potential of CS1 in PAH. Then we moved CS1 to a phase 1 trial, and we saw good safety and tolerability in that. And we also got the pharmacokinetics that we were looking for. We have a delayed immediate release formulation that we have developed over several years. In addition, we also saw that we significantly could reduce a biomarker for thrombosis and myocardial infarction, PI, which is very promising. Now, looking forward here in the clinical phase 2, I'll go into detail, but it's basically to establish the efficacy in PAH. And we have an innovative study design, both ethical and cost efficient. And we are working in collaboration with worldwide thought leaders on this program, which will be pursued in the US. So we aim to demonstrate the primary endpoint here is safety and tolerability in the phase 2 trial, but we're also going to look at exploratory efficacy parameters here, such as standard efficacy endpoints. We are going to use a calculated, validated risk score, and we're also going to look for dose finding, what effect we have with the various dosages that we're going to look at. We're going to aim to apply a cutting-edge technology for measuring the pressure in the lungs. The study is going to be 30 patients at about 6 centers in the US. It will be conducted under the orphan drug designation status that was awarded by US FDA March last year. The timeline we aim for is a start in September of this fall, and to have the results by the end of next year. The principal investigator is the top thought leader in this field of PH, Dr. Raymond Benza. Is active in Ohio at the Wexner Medical Center. Let's have a short look at our preclinical program. So I'm very happy that we just announced that we have acquired the option for worldwide development and commercial rights for CS585, a prostacyclin analog, that Michael Hollenstadt here on the picture is one of the innovators of. So we made that agreement with University of Michigan, who held the rights before. And the other program that we have is CS014. It's an HDAC inhibitor, a new version. And we actually announced just a week or two back that we have signed a collaborative deal with University of Michigan to bring these two preclinical programs into man within 24 months, with the research going on at University of Michigan, led by Michael Hollenstadt here. So a short look at our scientific advisory board, which is very heavy, very recognized, top experts in the field of cardiovascular disease and rare diseases. Dr. Burton Pitt, I worked in the past with in survival trials in heart diseases. He is the chair of the board, professor emeritus at University of Michigan. Dr. Raymond Benza, I just mentioned, he will be the principal investigator for the PH study that we'll do in the US. Dr. Deepak Bath and Gordon Williams are both active at Harvard Medical School in Boston. Gunnar Olsson used to be head of AstraZeneca's global research for gastro and cardiovascular diseases. And then Dr. Fayez Sanad, he's been active in 2 survival trials that I have initiated with my colleagues in heart failure. He's from France. So it's a very distinguished group of advisors that we have to our benefit of Cereno. I should say, by the way, that we just had our recent meeting with this board, and they're very happy with the progress of Cereno, building Cereno into a biotech company with now 3 programs going on. So a short look at our management team. We have strengthened the management team in relation to the more broad program that we have in our pipeline, and also the more advanced we have for CS1. So the latest addition here is Tina Seppe, down to the left in the picture. She has a background with Orion Pharma, both 15 years in clinical research and regulatory affairs globally, including interaction with the FDA. So she's running our PH study program from a clinical and regulatory perspective. She's also leading our efforts now to compile our IND application, which we are going to submit to the FDA for approval of our study in the US. Next to Tina here is Michael Hollenstadt, the innovator of CS585, but he's also active at the pharmacology department at University of Michigan. And we just announced that he will be the director of translational research for Cereno, leading these 2 preclinical programs at University of Michigan. So we're very happy to have Michael with us here. And another addition to the team is Stine Birk Hansen, who is project director for general projects at the company. So a summary here of our latest performance, which I think is very progressive. We have strengthened our team for the clinical study. We have expanded the team with Mike Hollenstadt here for our preclinical phase. We've also actually this year gotten increased patent protection in 2 major markets for CS1, Japan and Russia. Very happy with that. And as I mentioned, we have in-licensed the preclinical program, the prostacyclin analog agonist CS585. And in addition, now we have initiated our 2 preclinical program at University of Michigan that's going to run for 24 months approximately and bring those 2 compounds into man. And by that time, we'll have 3 programs in clinical phase. So what's up? Well, we're going to submit our IND for review and hopefully approval by the FDA. Before we can start a study in PAH in September. And starting this study is the next milestone then after the approval of the IND. So looking at the long-term picture or near-term, I should say, for Cereno. So this year, we're going to start the phase 2 study for CS1 in the rare disease, PAH. We have a very exciting profile of our compound to be able to possibly impact, not only reduce the pressure, but actually impacting disease progression of this very dangerous disease. We aiming to bring that phase 2 study to conclusion by the end of next year. And after that, we're going to initiate our phase 2B, potentially pivotal study in 23. For our preclinical programs, we are starting now and have started our work with University of Michigan for CS585 and CS014. And within 24 months, we're going to have these 2 compounds into phase 1. And as you might understand that with this portfolio and this progress, we are activating our business development activities further during this period. So by that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sten. I will start off by digging deeper in your CS1, this project that is hopefully going into this phase 2 state. Can you give us a little bit how you're gonna finance this type of studies?
CS1 you mentioned, right?
Yeah, CS1.
Yeah.
For the phase 2,
yeah. So CS1, our most advanced project, which have gone through a phase 1 with very good data on safety and tolerance, and also the very exciting impact on reduction of PI, the biomarker for thrombosis, which is a biomarker actually for the risk of stroke and myocardial infarction. So now, as I mentioned, we are moving into submission of the IND to get approval for the phase 2 study. And then we're going to run that study starting this fall in September and conclude it next fall. And we financed the company last year with around 60 million. And we have almost all that cash still in the company, actually. So we financed one effort, and the next effort is our option program that was connected to the last finance. Actually, we had 2 option programs. One, TO1, is this September, and it's if fully prescribed, going to bring in 100 million Swedish. And the next program, TO2, is next September of 22. And that's going to bring in around 100 million in addition, if fully prescribed. So if everything goes well, we'll have 200 million Swedish additionally over the next 15 months. So we feel pretty well in relation to our financing of the current programs, the phase 2 and the 2 preclinical programs. We will need to finance the company again when we move into more clinical work for the for the 2 preclinical programs, but that's in 2 years. And when we're going to move into serious phase with CS1, phase 2B or phase 3 pivotal trial. So in about 1.5 to 2 years.
Yeah, and could it be an alternative to looking for partners in this kind of in this stage, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So, meanwhile, here we are not relaxing our financing or partnering efforts, neither for financing stronger shareholder partners in the company, as well as industrial partners who also could be an avenue for financing, actually. So we are running two parallel processes. During these 2 years, we're going to run those two parallel processes opportunistically, actually, and see where we end up. I should also say that we, as you know, as I mentioned here, that we have an affiliate in Boston, and we have two research programs at University of Michigan. In addition, we're running the phase 2 program in the US. So it's not unlikely that we will do some kind of additional arrangement in relation to the US presence. I can't go into in detail on this now because it's not known, but that's one of our objectives.
Can you give us some pointers on the competition out there? Like, is it other companies doing similar kind of projects, would you say?
Yeah, I think that the competition is there are drugs, of course, on the market, and the problem is that the patients are very underserved, so to speak. The prognosis is very bad, and also the morbidity here is bad. So, and none of the drugs out there have an impact on disease progression, and I think that's one of the major hopes here. So. Let's say that our aim is, of course, to prove efficacy when it comes to reducing the pressure in the lungs. That's number one. And that will add to the efficacy that the other drugs have in these patients. So there's a very positive view on combination therapy for this disease. Very similar to heart failure, actually, which went from one drug and now they're up to 4 different kind of drugs that are used, and they are improving morbidity and mortality together. And I think PH will move in, and our scientific advisory board believes that the PH will move in a similar direction. So we aim to reduce the pressure. We have done that already in live animals, so we know that that's probably going to happen. But the other very important aspect here is that we believe that we have a very good chance to improve have an impact on disease progression, as we have seen that we have anti-inflammatory, anti-fibrotic, and anti-thrombotic capacity in the preclinical work that has been done. And it's not one study, it's several studies. So our hope is that we'll be able to reduce the disease progression and potentially even reverse negative morphology and so on that has been seen in our preclinical work. So that's very hopeful. I should say that if we are able to do that, so when we enter the market, we'll be able to be added to other compounds for efficacy, but we would have a very unique profile of impacting disease progression.
We are hopefully seeing the light in the tunnel regarding this corona pandemic. It has been a problem for life science, and I mean especially in studies for life science companies to find and recruit patients to their studies due to the pandemic. How does it look for you now when you're actually hopefully entering this phase 2?
Yeah, so of course it's a concern of ours that the pandemic is not over yet. Potentially it will turn into some kind of seasonal problem with vaccinations of at least risk groups every year. But so we have analyzed the potential impact of the pandemic on our study. The good thing here is that our study is not huge. It's 30 patients, and we are distributing the recruitment centers of about 6 centers. It might be more than that, maybe 9. We'll see. So we should have a good likelihood of recruiting our patients. But you can't rule out that the pandemic might have some influence. We will see. It looks like the pandemic is reducing dramatically now, at least in the US, but it might take off again during the winter. Hopefully many patients and individuals have been vaccinated, and so it should be under control.
All right, and that was all the question I had for you. Thank you very much, Sten, and good luck.